how to make it sound like you know what you're talking about when you're drinking whiskey. Now, the reality is that a lot of people sort of pretend to know a lot more about whiskey than they actually do. And some top tips to join that group of people is you can say things like, oh, this tastes exactly the right amount of peat. So peat is effectively smokiness. That's what that means. The other top trick is if you smell it, you can basically say it smells like anything confidently. Confidence is key here. If you say, oh, it's really getting great butterscotch notes from the liquid, if you say it with enough confidence, everybody around you will say, absolutely, this tastes fantastic. I completely agree with you. So top tip, say things with confidence, and I promise you people will get in line and agree with you. If you drink a whiskey and you don't like it and you want to articulate that, you can talk about it tasting or smelling like wet dog or wet cardboard or just foul. These would all be good descriptors for bad whiskey. Now, how to taste a whiskey. If you're being very formal about drinking whiskey and want to try and get the most notes out of it that you possibly can, what you're really meant to do is when you pour yourself a glass, you're meant to fill it up to about halfway up the sort of tulip shape if you have one of these more formal whiskey glasses. Firstly, you check the color. The color in a glass of whiskey, well, the color in the whiskey comes from the oak cask in which it was matured. Now, typically, the longer a cask has been matured, the darker the color of the liquid. So you might see some even 50 or 60-year-old bottles of whiskey in which the color is extremely dark. One dirty little secret in the whiskey industry is that many companies actually add coloring artificially to make it look like the liquid is darker than it actually would be in the cask. This doesn't impact the flavor, but people like the look of a darker liquid, so do check the label for that. Now, once you've checked the color, you want to give it a quick smell. So you don't want to go in too close too fast. Start slightly further out and just take a couple of sniffs as you bring it closer. Now, another top tip here is actually keep your mouth a tiny bit open. The reason being is that a lot of the flavor profile you're getting, whilst it's coming from your nose, you'll also pick up some from your tongue because of the strength of the alcohol. Just give it a smell. Give it a couple of turns, let it open up a little bit, nice and slow, not too fast. This particular whiskey is a Port Ellen, and you're getting really rich, sort of rich, dark, dried fruit notes of this. Finally, you take a tiny sip. The purpose of this is not to let your flavor profile get overpowered by the whiskey. So take a very small sip just to let your palate acclimatize to the alcohol and try and get some of those sort of flavor notes. And then have a think about it, swirl around your mouth and see what you think. And then you can take bigger drinks as you get into it. I'm getting a lot of spice with this. It's got a lovely sort of dark fruit and spicy notes. But I think this is, if you want to really try and get the most from a particular glass of whiskey, do try that. And I'd also recommend trying it initially at least without any ice. When you add ice, what that does is it restricts the flavor profile you'll get from the liquid. And if you want to try and get that full range, then try it initially without ice. If you then think it tastes horrible, add some ice, you won't taste it so much and you might enjoy it more. But yeah, cheers.